Hi, Shanti. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am good. I'm very excited to talk to you today. We've chatted a little bit in Gabby from No Plan B Consulting's Next Generation Network, and I loved our little chat. So I know I definitely wanted to chat more with you today. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Sure, no problem. So my name is Ifatinuwe Shanti Parvan. I'm a trauma-informed womb health practitioner. And what that means is that I help women in all stages of their lives, pretty much, with whatever they need as it pertains to their womb and womb health. Um, as an herbalist, I focus a lot of my energy on creating and curating products that I know are organic and safe, as well as I use herbal medicine as a means to treat and help some of the women that I work with. Um, and as a trauma informed practitioner, I use several modalities as a means to really help individuals get through trauma and emotional blockages that are a complete alternative to the traditional talk therapy.
I love that. So great. Yeah, I never realized how many toxins are in our everyday products that really affect our womb health until I started doing some
Mm-hmm.
research. It's crazy. So, as women, why do you feel it's so important that we connect to our wombs?
Oftentimes we say, oh, I had a gut feeling, or, I just had this knowing. And in reality, that is true. We did have that gut feeling, we did have that knowing, but all that really comes from the source of our womb, because the womb is really where we hold so much divine power that everything from creating, I mean, we can create life literally, right? But ideas and so forth, all are birthed from our wombs, in addition to the fact that it is just magical. We're the only beings, right, as divine feminine, who have this type of womb that is just both a portal to bring in life as well as to release life. So I think it's just a necessary thing for all women, right? I mean, I'm including young little girls who get their cycle as early as 8 years old. They should know and be comfortable with their wombs. And that's just having a source of power that's untapped, that's just unmeasurable.
Yes, I love that. So, how would you suggest we first start to connect with our wombs, especially since I know when I was little, I wasn't taught any of this stuff. I was taught you hide your period, it's a horrible thing you have to deal with once a month. Like, how do you suggest we start feeling
I
that
mean,
connection?
yeah, I totally understand the youth references, right? Because I don't think that that's something that our mothers really got comfortable with talking about it. And then once they found out, they just like, threw a pad at you and was just like, don't wear white and don't touch Clorox,
Yes.
and don't walk barefoot, in the cold or whatever. All these like weird, sayings that they had. I think the first step to really tapping into that power and just getting into knowing is simply every day, the same way as we make a prayer, and I say prayer regardless of what denomination you are, whether you're on your knees or you're bowing or you're in, lotus pose if you're a yogi, regardless of how you see prayer. But the fact that you do prayer, you're calling out to some higher being to come in. The same way you do that, I would say to do that with your womb by placing simply your hands on your womb and talking to it. Having that connection and that conversation is so vital, because as you develop that and really get comfortable doing that, you start to realize that your womb starts to talk to you. It'll start telling you how it feels, because an odor may change, right? You'll notice that when you're happy, you smell one way. When you're excited, you smell another way. When you're sad, you smell another way. You'll also notice whether or not are you developing a yeast infections or anything of that nature, because emotions are attached to illnesses. Um, and like I said, you just start feeling like this um, conversation is happening and your muscles responding back to your own voice. And I say, yeah, that'd be the first initial. I mean, that's how I first started. And it's what I actually try to encourage anyone that I work with. You know, just simply place your hands on your womb and breathe. Feel that connection.
Yes. Breathe into it. Kind of like you do when you're pregnant. You sit there and you talk to your baby in your womb. So the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how can connecting with our wombs help our businesses?
I mean, again, it's our divine power. So having that connection with our womb, we'll know if the business deal that we're about to embark, a partnership, a collaboration, is for us. At the same time, you're going to know what is what is good for your business, whether it's developing a new product or making a new collaboration or an expansion, etc. All those things kind of play a huge part, and it's a knowing that you get from your womb. And I'm not just talking about from an energetic, metaphysics level, but even on a physical level. If you pay attention to your vaginal, mucus, if you pay attention to your cycle is telling you either, hey, there's something wrong, or hey, there's something, everything is okay. So how the womb can play, I mean, I don't see how it cannot play in anything really. Even in making friendships, I think your womb would tell you, nah, this isn't someone I want to have a conversation with, or even know. I'm going to keep to myself and I'm going to stay over here.
Mhm. Yes, definitely. Yes, I use my cycle in my business all the time. There are times where I'm like ready to go do all the work, and then there's days where I'm like, I can't do any work, and it's just the point I am in my cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And I do encourage women that when, regardless of what job you're doing, on your first day of cycle, just relax, just do nothing and let your cycle flow, because your cycle is going to tell you shortly after. If you do too much, next thing you know, you went from having a 4-day period, a normal 4 or 5 day period, to a 6, 7, 8 week, or even 2 weeks. So that's, that it's to put it in context for folks. That's what we mean by when we say your womb is the knowing power. It will tell you truth or false if a situation is good for you.
Hmm. Yeah. And I realized too, if I don't rest on those day 1 or day 2 of my cycle, when I usually have that energy later on, it's not there because I used it all up at the beginning of my cycle, not giving my body the rest it needed. So, so I would love to know, especially since I have a 15-year-old daughter, what are some ways that we can teach the younger generation to not be ashamed of their bodies and to instead see the power that our bodies and our wombs hold?
I think, the first things first is always having a conversation, in a private setting that she would feel comfortable, and just ask her, have you ever heard the word womb? Have you ever heard the word yoni? Start something so simple as that, and then explaining it to them. And then if they have heard it, say, well, what are your thoughts of those words, right? Get their perspective first on how they view, if there's any relationship to the word or not. And if there is a relationship, wonderful. Then the conversation would just easily flow from there of, things that you should do, respecting it, giving them that understanding that they need to have a relationship with their womb. And then I would then segue into start doing stuff together that helps her to understand and empower her to accept her womb. And that could easily be from, taking her to the spa, or not even the spa, actually, correction. I would say taking her to a yoga class, right? Or that's very mindful and about womb affirmation. Taking her to a reading of a girl power book. One of the favorite books that I ever read when I was a kid, because it's so funny, was Dear God Is Me, Margaret. And, I don't think a lot of kids know about this book, but they should read it because it's like a nice introduction about having a conversation about periods. But being a first generation born here with immigrant parents, I could have I read the book and the conversation never happened, right? But I think as, we're now becoming, our children are now second generation and so on, I think the conversation is easier, especially when there's a book out there. And I know that there's not many books about cycles. which is, you know, I'm shouting out my English, my literature fields folks. You know, we need more books on that, especially from writers of color, you know, Afro-Indigenous women particularly. But I think just creating that conversation in that space for her to understand that everything and anything she's going to go through or is going through is normal. And then backtracking back to a person or to a child that never heard the word yoni, has no relationships to the word, begin simply with having the conversation of what is the word? And let's start using it when we talk about our womb. And when you want, you know, talk to your womb, ask your womb, and be best friends with your womb. And then, you know, continue from there. And I think eventually both theories will merge at some point. But yeah, I think it starts with a conversation.
Yes, definitely. Because it's my hope that no girls ever feel ashamed again of their period or feel they have to hide. Remember hiding the tampon up your sleeve at school so nobody would know.
Yes, yes. Or having, you know, like the embarrassment moment where like you didn't prepare for it or you did prepare for it and it still seeped through. What do you do? And especially if you go to Catholic school, right? Because when you go to Catholic school, you got to wear a skirt. So that's even worse. But having those conversations, and I think also learning to read the body language, right? To what point is your child comfortable with the conversation? And then once you see that they're not comfortable, stop the conversation, understand and respect that level. And I think that helps also with them getting more comfortable to talk to you and things of that nature. I know one thing that a friend of mine did, and I highly encourage it for all mothers, is that when her daughter got her period, she kind of had like a mommy daughter day, and then she prepared a basket. It was a period gift basket, and it had like everything for her cycle: panty liners, wipes, pads, books, and then it was interesting because at that time I was really doing a lot of research around pads and organic pads and things of that nature. So she and I were going back and forth on that conversation on what would be good for her, what wouldn't be, you know, and even like giving her like a little baggie for her to carry all her things, and then she could carry it in her book bag. But she knew what it meant and she knew what it was, and it was like a little purse, but nobody else did, so she wouldn't have that shame. And yeah, and it went, from my understanding, it went really well. So those are just some ideas and examples that I think people can use.
Oh, I love that. Yes, making sure they're prepared and knowing what to
Mm-hmm.
expect. Yes, I love that. So this next little segment is just a little fun segment. I ask all my guests these questions. So what is your favorite mindset book?
To be honest, I don't really have one. I Yeah, because I wouldn't even say that this is a book. I have a planner, like a moon planner for the year, that I love. I absolutely adore this book. I and I just think it's called Moon Planner. Like if you Google Moon Planner, you should be able to find it. I can't remember the artist that curates it, but it's just a beautiful book. But it's an interesting book because it has information and it gives you kind of like tools, and it has so in addition to like being a planner and a calendar, it has affirmations, it has rituals, it has, you know, information to just kind of like get you to understand like why things are going a certain way if they go a certain way, or how to prepare for something. But at the same time, make your to-do list, set goals, you know. So I would say that that probably would be my mindset book, because I literally religiously have been purchasing it for the last 3 years. And this is a planner that when it goes on pre-sale, it's out within like an hour or so. It's like completely out. You can't find it.
Wow, I will have to look into that. My two favorite things, planning and following your cycle. Like I'll have to look into that.
Exactly.
Yep. Do you have any affirmations that you use?
Um, Actually, I have a few that I have on my, like I have a mirror, and on my mirror it says, it's a little hard to read from this angle, but it says, my energy is my currency.
Like that.
right? I can't make out the other two, but I keep it to three really. But it's all about how I call back my power. My like I said, my energy is my currency. So just be mindful of who gets it, who shares it, and who's around me. So I really do those three mantras, and I have a playlist of songs that are mantras as well. So I do those additionally.
It's great. And what is your favorite podcast?
Oh, one of my favorite podcasts is called El Salon Chronicles because it's just really hilarious. Some episodes are more interesting than others, but it's really funny. I have the Herbal Diary, a few from like the Black community as far as herbalism is concerned, and spirituality. Um, but I would probably say it's really diverse, but it's between anything related to herbs or like chisme, I guess you can say, right? Like, yeah. Just because you want to have that distraction, kind of like that moment that you can like kind of step out and like not be in the midst of like your reality.
Yes, you have to have the fun ones along with the business ones and ones you learn from. Definitely.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And for anybody who wishes to connect with you and all the magic that you are creating, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast. For anyone who wants to get in touch with me, they can visit my website. It's wombshanti.com. I'm also on Instagram. It's _wombshanti _. But I'm very accessible via both means. Just, you send me a message or, it sends me a text and I respond within like hours. Because I don't, I understand some people are pressed for information, other are not. And like I said, I cover all stages of women. So it goes from, the maiden stage, right? From the moment you get your period up to that moment that you decide or end up having or getting pregnant. And then I work with the mothers during the pregnancy as a birth assistant, as a postpartum assistant. And also for those in between that want to get pregnant but are having issues, I work with them as well. And then the after part, right? The menopausal stage. I work with women as well in that stage because I think that oftentimes we think that, that for those who are about to go into it, we think that it's death. And then the ones that are in it are like, what happened? Like, I'm still alive. Why have I been forgotten? And let me tell you something. They're some of the most spiciest women I've worked with. I love it. The energy is fire. And, they're so candid too about everything, especially about their womb. They're like, it ain't working.
I love that.
So I really appreciate my wisdom, my wise women group that I work with because they're just amazing. They keep me on my toes.
Oh. Well, I will have all the links in the show notes. So anybody who wants to connect with you can go there and click the links. And again, thank you so much for this conversation today. It was great.
Thank you one more time. I had an amazing time. Thank you.